banks are making so much money off of our money that's not making anything. A savings account is not making anything. It's not keeping up even with inflation. When you look at money markets and CDs and bonds, a little bit better. But, when we can really get that out of the system and have control of the system and put, purpose and intention with our money, people start to make money, and very passively.
Welcome back to another episode of The Abundant Life. I'm your host, Charles Todd, and Angela Todd, and the crowd goes wild.
The crowd, please. We have a really great episode today. We have a special guest who happens to be one of my absolute favorite people in the world.
Ooh, that's big.
It is big.
Wow.
Yeah. Someone who I can tolerate for a long period of time.
That's the key. Toleration when it's like family, like close friends. It's like, what's your tolerance level for them actually being around?
He is Lonnie Murphy, a financial advisor from Irvine, California. Someone we have met through the church, have had lots of ministry times and sessions and prayer and answered prayer and ministering, and you want to name every single possible thing that you could talk about in life and have results through prayer and doing life together. He's gold. He's absolute gold, and I'm so happy we have him on our podcast today because he is our wealth manager, one of them, and he is by far the most interesting, the most not only dedicated, but thinks outside the box, has alternative ways to do things with investments and your money. He's so knowledgeable, and he has probably, 1,000 credits to his profession, which he has to be for what he does. He has to be licensed, and he'll be able to tell you in all these things what he can share, what he can't share. And he is just an amazing human being. He recently has a son and has another baby on the way, a beautiful wife, and a robust career. And we're so excited to have him. Lonnie Murphy, the drum roll, please.
Hey, Lonnie.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the kind words. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you guys today.
Always.
So, Lonnie, just tell us what you can as far as where you work at, who you work for, what you do on your own. Just kind of give us just a brief background on that.
So, been in finance for 20 years now this February, and started my career. Thank you. Started my career primarily in the insurance, and in finance, you have insurance, you have investments. Now I spend probably about 90% of my time helping clients be efficient from a comprehensive perspective, so that there's a lot of tax planning aligned with tax attorneys and CPAs, and really we help people minimize their taxes and build their generational wealth. And I office in Irvine, California with a company called True Path Financial. I also have Lonnie Murphy Financial and Insurance Strategies. So I work throughout the United States, I work within a lot of teams, a lot of team approaches, which I actually think is great. And, a lot of people should focus more on having a team of advisors, especially Solomon. He had thousands of advisors, and the Bible says we find safety in a multitude of counsel. So I've had to really become very good at being a part of the team and being a team player, and I think clients receive great results from that.
And you also have high net worth clients that you work with, so you have
absolutely
some very big numbers that you work with and strategies that you use. So we are all ears are on what you have to bring to the table, because there's lots of wisdom and a lot of high net worth individuals that you have gleaned wisdom from. So
Yeah, for sure.
lay it on us.
But, the one thing that I want to mention, moving forward, though, before we even get started on anything, is that, we're obviously talking about investing. We're going to be looking for Lonnie to give us tips on investing, how to invest, where to start, some of the basics. But investing isn't just for people who have enormous amounts of wealth. Investing has to start from the very beginning.
Right.
And so I want to kind of set this whole thing up from a spiritual perspective on, first of all, what does God think about investing? And, where do we, as Christians or just anybody, where do we establish this foundation on investing in? So I was reading about this morning, the parable of the talents. And basically, it's about the Lord and his servants. And the Lord was going to go away, and he was going to leave in control his wealth to these three servants. One he's going to give 5 talents to, one he's going to give 2 talents to, and the other one he's going to give 1 talent to. So I'm just going to read this just real quick. This is what the Lord said to the one who had the 5 talents. He said, his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of our Lord. So was he pleased that he invested his money and got money back? He was pleased. So then here's the other dude. This is what he said about the other dude who put 1. He took 1. And what did he do? He put it in the ground. He didn't invest it. He didn't do anything. He dug a hole and stuck it in the ground. And this is what the Lord said to him. The Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. I mean, come on now. You lazy. You knew that I reaped where I have not sown, and I gathered where I have not sown. So you ought to be deposit of my money with the bankers, and on my coming, I would at least receive back interest. So what's he saying? He's like, dude, you should at least put my money in the bank and got me some interest on it, but you stuck it in the ground. And so he considered this lazy and unfaithful. So then if you go to, I want to pair this up, and we're going to get on to the factual stuff of investment, but I want to set the spiritual foundation here.
Okay.
Amplified Bible says this. Says, he is faithful in a very little thing is also faithful in much, and he who is dishonest in a very little thing is also dishonest in much. So basically, if you can't handle the little, you ain't gonna be able to handle the much.
Right.
Because you're not faithful. So my recommendation to people, because I hear this a lot, is that I don't have the money to invest. I don't have money to give. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. It's like, you gotta start small. Be faithful what you do have. I don't care if you give a dime, if you give $1, whatever it is. I just talked to a lady at the breakfast at the hotel we're staying at today, and she overheard me having a conversation with a guy who was doing a wealth seminar today in the hotel that we're at. And so later I went and had breakfast. She said, hey, I just wanted to say thank you. You encouraged me, whatever. So I got into a conversation with her, and she told me that she saved $6,000 in 6 months working at Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. I don't think they're probably paying 6 figures there. What's my point? She's faithful to the little, and she's able to do that. So that's the encouragement that I want people to get. This isn't about just, we're going to give information for people who are multimillionaires or billionaires, even though Lonnie does deal with those guys every single day. And so, yeah, he's gleaned on a lot of wisdom from these guys and learned things, and he's even teaching these guys these things as well, too. This is for everybody. No matter where you're at in the area of your finances, it's never too early to invest. And that's the main thing that I want to get before we start getting into this.
It's never too late to
Never
invest.
too late. And for us, it's been about playing catch up, because we weren't doing that. We got into a place where, and some people know our testimony, 25 years ago, we were completely bankrupt. We lost everything. We lost our cars. We didn't have a place to live. We had absolutely nothing. I lived out of my car for almost a year, getting back to work and doing things again as well, too. And so people think, oh, you guys can talk about investing because you're multimillionaires and you have this and you have that, or you came from a trust fund. No. And we're playing catch up now. And my stepfather was the one who encouraged me to start investing years ago, but it took like 10 years of him telling me every single year, you need to invest. You need to invest. I was like, I don't need to do that now. It's like, I got all this time to think. And let me tell you what, the most important decision you can make is to invest early. And we'll have Lonnie talk about the details of that, which is why once we learned that, we made our daughter at 8 years old an employee of our corporation. She started paying income tax and investing at a very early age. And now Lonnie is actually managing her wealth. She's a professional athlete, and she's on the path to being a multimillionaire because of implementing these things early and starting at an early age. She wasn't investing millions of dollars when she was 8 years old. She was investing dollars. Seriously, not even hundreds of dollars.
And I love how you guys laugh at where she's investing now and what she's going to be when she retires, because it's so crazy, the compounding interest on the hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's amazing. And the other thing that I wanted to get clear, and I'm still setting the foundation for this conversation, is that even all the success that Lonnie has had, bro, just tell me, like, I can't remember, I was trying to think this morning, like 7 years ago, you basically had to start over in your life. I mean, because people think, gosh, these guys have been doing this all their life, but it's like, not only did we lose everything, but you really did too. You had a bad partnership, and I don't want you to, have to share a whole lot of detail of that, but just kind of explain, what happened to you, how long ago that was, and what's happened to you now.
Yeah. About 7 years ago, maybe not even that long, I had to start over. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, and, one of the scriptures I've always stood on is wisdom and knowledge is far more valuable than silver and gold. So even though I had to start over, I didn't have to start over in knowing what to do in the process. So I just got back to work, and obviously, I worked for a period of time, to the point I couldn't work anymore. But I worked in a sense of just starting the process over, and I rebuilt a multi-million-dollar company in less than 5 years. And it was because I didn't lose the knowledge. Even though I lost everything else, I still had the wisdom. I still had the knowledge. I made the adjustments.
Yep.
I never stopped learning. And, I put myself around people that were better than me. And I continue to do that. And I, became a part of a top 25 in the country study group. And you get in a room with 25 guys that are producing at the highest level. Amongst people that are really producing high, you get great ideas, and you have great ideas to bring back to the marketplace, your clients, to serve them. And in less than 5 years, I was able to rebuild everything.
There was a period of time when, I was talking about living out of my car, working out of my car. There was a period during that first, when you're rebuilding, that you didn't have a car. You were walking to work.
Yeah.
With your backpack. Yeah. Across Newport Beach. You think, oh, here's this wealth manager. He's like, he doesn't even have a car. He's walking to work.
That's a true story. I was walking to work, was still at work on time. And I think the diligence that, the Bible says that the hand of the diligent rolls. You have seasons, and in business, we all have the ebbs and flows of, seasons. And it was a season that everything was cut back. To your point, I didn't have a car. And I remember being, I wouldn't say frustrated, maybe even more, just discouraged. And I knew I had a lot to offer. I knew I had the experience, but it was discouraging, and especially walking to, my office in Newport Beach, California. But I looked at it as, I have a job. I have a career path.
Being thankful for what you have at the time.
And I found gratitude in the opportunity.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, make the most of every opportunity. And I just started to get to work, and I did. I made the most of every opportunity. I began to believe God, because I do believe you have to add spiritual principle to everything that's natural.
Yeah, for sure.
And
well, that's why you get the term supernatural.
Yeah.
You gotta have some natural to put the super on to get the supernatural results.
Yeah, and I naturally, I know, like, okay, you got to work hard, but supernaturally, I started to believe God to just put me in the right place at the right time and be surrounded around the right people. I knew I had a lot to offer. I mean, if you're sitting down with a business owner that's paying, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in taxes, I got great solutions. So it was just God, can you put me in the right place around the right people? And he started to do that. And the next thing you know, I realized that success came in 90% of the time just showing up, just being available.
That's just a principle right there. Just show up.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
You know, and I tell a lot of the younger advisors in my office, I tell them, look, 90% of the time is showing up. Because if you're in a place to where you've positioned yourself around people to learn and understand what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on in the landscape of just economics, you might just run into someone in passing and make a connection. And I saw God do that so many times in my life. I have a great heart of gratitude. I'll tell you what, when you have a lot and then you lose it all and then you have to rebuild, you have a different sense of humility and gratitude, and God blesses that. It's just stewardship now, just stewardship of, you know, the clients I have and the process that we take them through and the character of the recommendations. And I couldn't be more excited for what God's done.
You know, I think a lot of times when we're giving information, we're talking about these type of things, you know, we're talking about our success, we're talking about the great things that have happened to us, we're thankful for those things, but it can almost be like you're not even real, you know, sometimes to people. So, you know, I think it's important for people to be able to connect. It's like, you know, successful people go through some of the same things that people who've had, you know, problems in their life as well too. And I think, you know, one of the things with investing is that people sometimes might not want to make the investment because number one, they don't want to take the risk.
Right.
And so why do they not want to take the risk? Because they are afraid of failing. And why are they afraid of failing? Because they either lose all their stuff or they look dumb. So therefore they just end up I'm just going to stay in a place where I feel free. And, you know, I hear this term sometimes, a lot of people talking about, you know, investing or whatever it may be, you know, starting your own business, no risk, no reward. And there's a lot of truth in that. It's like, if you are not going to take a risk, you're not going to have a chance for reward. I mean, even think about an athlete. You know, an athlete can't get the reward of competition without taking the risk of getting beat. You know? So there's all types of risks that we have to take in life, and investing's the same way. But you're going to have to step out. I mean, we're just talking about this on one of our previous podcasts about Deuteronomy 8:18, where God says, I will give you the power to get wealth. So you have to actually utilize the power. You have to go and do something. He doesn't say, I will give you wealth. He says, I will give you the power. So it's the same thing. If you want to reap the rewards of investment, you're going to have to take some risk. And if you do fail, it's not the end of the world. It's just stuff, you know, and you're a perfect example, and so are we, of losing all the stuff and getting all the stuff back. And I don't try to say that from a place that, hey man, you go invest, you're going to lose it all tomorrow. It's all good. You get it all back. I'm just saying from the perspective is that at the end of the day, it really is all stuff. And if we are stewards of the kingdom's finances, then it's not even really your stuff anyway. Do I like my stuff? Yeah, I like to live nice. I like to drive nice. I like to travel nice. I like all that stuff. But I always say that everything I have is for sale or to give away at the end of the day. Yeah. So, you know, everything that you're trying to do, if you can take the perspective, I think, or take the mindset off of the stuff or your things and what you're doing to advance yourself, what you're doing to leave, like you said, generational wealth, what you're trying to do to advance the kingdom, that's where I think, you know, the mindset needs to be really based around and not so much centered on the stuff or the money.
You know, all these are great conversations. I know, you know, last year, right at the beginning of the year, you know, we had a massive case that we had to unwind. I don't believe it was in the best interest for the client. I believe it was a perfect scenario of another advisor got into the situation and really just unwinded the whole situation. But it cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, and as a firm, it was a lot, so now we're starting the year, what seemed to be off the back end of one of the best years of all of our careers, completely behind. But what I now can see looking back was that was actually the best thing that happened. So we all have opportunities to where we have, a significant loss to either turn it into, a stumbling block or stepping stone. So what I did is I got back to the drawing board and I said, okay, well, I'm not going to get compensated anytime soon in this line of work. I have to rebuild this. But what it did is it opened up the opportunity for me to look at other options and really diversify my book. So I was able to build over 6 different companies last year to just increase income. And today I look back and what was bad ended up being the best thing that ever happened, because it got me out of my comfort zone and it got me to a point to where I had to start to rethink, how can we be better in the process? What are better solutions that we can provide clients? And let's implement those. And I think that's the same for so many businesses and just people, in general, is when you go through something and lose it, don't get lost in the, the situation. Find the opportunity and get out of it.
I think that's a word for anybody out there that you may have just lost your job and you maybe had a dream of starting that business. And sometimes we look at that, oh my gosh, I just lost my job. This is a dead end. And instead of looking at it from the perspective of a dead end, it's that this is the opportunity for a new beginning, just like you said. And I love, that point that you just made, because regardless, where we're at financially, where we're at from an investment perspective, this is all relative to anybody. Everything that we're talking about, and we haven't even got into talking about investing yet, right. We gave nobody any tips, but what we're doing is we're saying, hey, these are things that come up in life. These are things that we've experienced. These are things that we've done, and it's relative to anybody, no matter where you're at.
DMG got started, our company got laid off.
Yeah.
And thank God I got laid off. Because there would have been no ingenuity or innovation to look at things differently, start your own company, be your own enterprise, bring on your own partners, be your own boss. There's so many great things that come out of lemons. Just make lemonade.
Yep.
Get with people who are above you, the same level as you, but grow. Like you were saying, you surrounded yourself with so many smart people in a room where ideas were just flowing, and what a blessing that is to glean from other people's wisdom.
Yes. You never want to lose your, I call it your swag, but, it's your confidence. I mean, even the Bible says don't cast away your confidence, because it does have great reward. And I think about, when they stoned, Stephen, I believe, and they dragged him out into the street and they centered around him and they thought he was dead. I love that he got back up. Yeah. So you got to put yourself around people that are going to encourage you to get back up. And I think every opportunity that I've had that I can look back in life and say that was either a bad situation or a loss. It really wasn't. And it comes down to surrounding myself first and foremost in God's word, around godly people, and people that are going to rebuild and create confidence. Because to your point, Charles, God has given us the power. He's given us the tools.
Yeah.
He's given us everything that we need, and we're more than enough. Yeah. And I think that for me is just don't ever lose your swag. Don't ever lose your confidence, because it'll allow you to, allow God to have something to work in and work with. And then on the flip side of so much, it becomes stewardship. It really does. And the more efficient that we are in stewardship of the things that God gives us, with the tithe and offerings and giving and, just proper structure of what we do financially, that's really where we start to see incredible growth.
It makes me think too about, some of the greatest fighters out there, boxers, MMA guys, whatever. It's not always the guys that can give the best punch. It's the guys that can take the biggest punch and get back up. Some of those are the fights like, oh my gosh, that dude's done. And then he gets back up and you're like, are you even kidding me? It's like, it's more almost entertaining from that perspective to see that guy that's got that ability to get back up off the canvas and go back to work. So I want to get into now starting to kind of get some tips and some information to our viewers here about investing. I want to really start from like the basics of people maybe that don't even have any investment accounts whatsoever and maybe have their money in the bank. I know that we've had this conversation before about the banking institution and how it's a fractional reserve system and how people don't even really understand what that means. Can you just explain that a little bit and like kind of the importance of maybe moving your money from a bank into an investment account, whatever that may look like?
Yeah, so fractional reserve is interesting. What most people don't realize is that when you put money in a bank, sometimes so for example, you put $1,000 cash in a bank, you might not have 1,000 available for a period of time. It's because the banks are using that and they're going and making money off of our money, and when they can do that with a lot of different people, it's very profitable for banks. Banks are actually very profitable institutions. So people will primarily put money in cash because it's safe, but in a long period of time, it's actually not because of inflation. So if you got cash sitting in a bank or even a savings account, the bank's making a lot of money off of that, off of all of us. We're actually losing money over a period of time because inflation's very real. We've all seen that. So you want to have cash available, but you most definitely want to move your cash into something that's going to start to make money. So I think at a very high level, we always want to take advantage of, tax benefits, so we receive tax benefits when we put money into an individual retirement account. Obviously, every employer now today has some type of employer sponsored plan. And I think those are great. If you have a 401k, a lot of times there's a match. Let's put money into something so that we can at least make sure that we're getting additional money that's not coming out of our pocket, because that's just smart. And I think that's widely accepted. But those are kind of two highlighted 30,000 foot views. And time is huge. When you put money into really anything over a long period of time, you're going to have a lot more, at some point.
Going back to what you said is that, when you put the money in the bank, it's not actually available, but it's available to the bank and the bank is using it. And the bank has the ability to lend up to 90% of that money. So let's say you put in 1,000, they can go and loan 9,000 on that 1,000, correct? That's what they're
correct. So
if they lend out to 9 other people $1,000, and then all of a sudden everybody went in to get the money wouldn't be there.
Correct.
So the misconception that people have that the bank is safe, it's really not from that perspective. So we just did a podcast recently about how to protect your money from being hacked from the bank. But I think, this is kind of a flip side of that, is how do you protect your money from just the bank taking advantage of you and using your money and you making absolutely nothing. So you basically become somewhat of your own institution by getting that money out of the bank and putting it somewhere where it's actually going to be working for you and not for the bank.
And that's a great point. I mean, we saw this with, some high-end banks in California. You guys can obviously find who those banks are with your own research, but we all know about them. We do need to understand that there is safety parameters around banks. And I was actually doing some research this morning on what are the safest banks in the world, and it was interesting. There are some in the United States, but there's a lot that you would think that would be on that list that aren't. And that's the last thing we want to be. That's the last place we want to be, is we put, our money in a bank, and then someday we realize, wow, it's not as easy to get out.
When you put your money in the bank, say you have your thousands in there and you want to take out all of your money, how long does it take the bank to get your money to you? It's a process, isn't it? Let's just say
it's a process.
$200,000 in the bank and I want to take out $200,000. How long is it going to take me to get my $200,000 from the bank?
It's going to be different for every bank. It's a process, obviously, and some of it I celebrate because we don't want any suspicious activity. No one wants that. But sometimes you want your money, and it's your money,
Right.
And we've had great conversations about, I was having to make large transfers because of some of the companies that I started, and I wanted to fund some of them. It was not as easy a process for me to just transfer money from one of my personal accounts to another of one of my personal accounts. And, I look at that and that frustration with people. They need to focus a lot more on making sure that they're connected with a bank that is not only a safe bank, it's insured appropriately, but even looking beyond that FIDC protection. A lot of trust companies are phenomenal in helping people protect more than, the state limitations. I think that's great. I think the more money that you can have insured and protected, the better. But banks are most definitely in the game for making profit, for making business.
And they're a business. I mean, let's just be
they
real
are a
about
business.
it. So it's just like if you're going to go to Walmart or Target or whoever, and you're comparing prices you're going to buy a bedspread or whatever, and you're trying to get the best price, you're going to go through that process. You need to do the same thing with your bank. Like, just don't think okay, that's the bank across the street, I'm going to go stick my money in there and everything's okay. It might not be the best choice. You need to do your due diligence, just like you were any other business. If you're buying a hamburger, buying a set of sheets for your bed, whatever it is, you need to do the same thing with your banking. And remember, and this is something that I've experienced, and you just shared a story with me just recently when you had an issue with your bank and you were going in trying to take care of something. You're like, they're trying to sell me everything. They're trying to ask me if I needed a mortgage, if I needed credit cards. And then when I said, no, I'm here to do this, then they started trying to sell your wife. They want to start selling Brittany. It's like, why are they doing that? They're just like Walmart. They're wanting to sell some stuff. Hey, excuse me, sir, do you need some help over here? What are you looking for? Do you need me to help you out? They're doing the same thing. You need this, you need that. It's a business.
It is.
Therefore, you need to do your due diligence on where you are spending your money, because you are going to spend your money in a bank most of the time if you've got service fees or whatever the type of those things are. Or if you're not, if you're getting paid interest, then am I getting paid the optimal amount of interest that I can, and do their specific services meet my specific needs? Because everybody's needs are going to be different.
Absolutely. I think the more, and I'm trying to say at a high level, but the more you really look into it, stewardship, if we have $100,000, we need to know wherever we put it, all associated encompassing, what are the fees, what are the expenses, what are the protection limits of everything. And that's a big thing to me, because really when you start to look into it, banks are making so much money off of our money that's not making anything. A savings account is not making anything. It's not keeping up even with inflation. When you look at money markets and CDs and bonds, a little bit better. But, when we can really get that out of the system and have control of the system and put, purpose and intention with our money, people start to make money, and very passively.
So what if I'm an individual and I'm a subcontractor, I'm a 1099, or maybe I just started a business or whatever, and I haven't invested anything? What would your recommendation be for that person? Where do they start?
the great thing about, qualified plans is kind of the broad scope of, a 401k, an employer-sponsored plan. We can set those up individually as well. But what happens in those conversations is we look at a combination of cost and performance and obviously individualize it. So if you have a huge company of 1,000 employees, you're because of regulation, you're probably going to see that 401k, and that's great. But if you're a company of one individual, well, we can still do that, but we can also create something a little bit more beneficial, and that gets into more of the advanced planning, gets into more of the specific to that individual outside the box. Because one thing with qualified plans is they're highly regulated, and I think regulation is not a bad thing, but I also think that in some cases it limits what you're available to invest in. And right now there is a lot of opportunities that people can invest in that are going to be better than the regulated investment companies that are in the exchange. That's just fact.
But like what would be,
so we're starting to see a lot more people look at contractual instead of speculative type investments, which I think is an interesting thought, right? We all understand speculative investments, and that's where we got into, we had the big crypto, and that was very speculative. That's not a company that is, like a Coca-Cola or a Tesla or a Google. We know those companies are going to stand the test of time. Speculative, we don't really know what crypto is going to do. So a lot of individuals are creating contractual investments to where, and I'll give you an example. There's one that I'm personally invested in. It's not an actual investment, because they've structured it as a bridge loan, and as they have pulled money from investors so that they can partner with developers so that they can eliminate a lot of just dealing with banks and time and, just horizon of projects. They're able to accelerate projects, and the developers pay interest and profit sharing. And the upscale of some of those are obviously huge, but in simplicity, they just guarantee 10% every 90 days. So if I can get a guaranteed 10% every 90 days and an offering that virtually doesn't have any risk, everything has risk, but I just don't see a lot of risk here. That's a lot stronger than what I can go get in regulated investments. And if I have an opportunity to do that, obviously I'm going to capitalize that, until things change.
What it sounds like to me is you were just saying how, the bank's taking our money and they're making money off of our money, but we're not having any of those benefits.
Mm-mm.
But this developer opportunity has become their own bank that's including the ones who are putting the money in as partners and then giving them the return on using that money to go and make money. So you're actually making a better choice by doing it that way. And with that said, is that opportunity available to everyone, or is it just to limited amount of people?
It's a great question. That's a great question, because oftentimes those opportunities have been limited to credited investors. So that's people making a certain amount of money and having a certain amount of net worth, which is, a lot more than 97% of just people in general. So what they did is they designed it for people to not have to be an accredited investor, and they could be able to get into this offering, this opportunity, and get 10% every 90 days. And instead of it being speculative, they've made it contractual. So they collateralize it, they insure it, and they just simply promise 10% every 90 days.
It's almost like crowdsourcing.
Yeah, you know, you
right?
hear
Instead of publicly traded, you go privately crowdsourcing, where you're able to offer those who are investing in you a certain amount of returns.
Yeah, you hear the general, sounds too good to be true. You hear the, you know, the general thoughts that what I've learned is we as a society, we have subconscious narrative. You know, so we learn things subconsciously without even knowing that we're learning it. That's the power of marketing. You know, so
media marketing, absolutely.
It is interesting, because you would think, and I was one of those, I thought on the front end, this just sounds too good to be true. There's no way. But when I started to look into the depth of it, I realized very quickly, this is actually genius. They have just stripped a lot of everything out of the system to take more control of what's going on. And you're starting to see a lot more of this in the marketplace. You're starting to see a lot of people with family offices, which is, you know, the ultra affluent. You're starting to see a lot of people pull money and either go and create investments or create lines of credit for partnerships so that money can be made. And I'm telling you, they have some exciting things. And I think investing should be exciting. I mean, there's some things that we should do. You know, I really believe in Solomon. He was real big in diversification. The Bible talks about, you know, Solomon would have 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. But I know 20% of my assets can take, you know, risk. Yeah. You know, I know 20% of my assets should probably just be sitting in, you know, what we consider tier one, you know, classes, you know, which is cash, money market, CDs, bonds, life insurance, even as an asset class. You know, so 20% of my money being able to make a contractual opposed to a speculative guaranteed 10%, that's 46% a year. You know, so I ask other questions. Instead of too good to be true, another question is, well, what if it is for a couple of years? It's already been for close to over 10 years. So there's been people making that type of money. And what I've realized is wealthy people have done things differently. Yeah. You know, they
don't share either.
That's a great point, mm-hmm. You know, because one of the questions I get all the time, almost in every meeting, because, and Charles, you guys have been in our meetings, we get how come everyone's not doing this? So in almost every scenario, I like to give educated answers to that type of response. And I've thought a lot about it. You know, the 1%, which we all hear about, you know, the millionaires and above, you know, statistically, you know, 97% of the global population doesn't even make $250,000 household income. So of the other 3% that are making that type of money, what I've learned about those people is they do find strategies that are beneficial. I wouldn't say gray, I would say strategies that have proven track record and can be defended in their overall tax planning, and investments that have a little bit more, you know, return. But they're just not telling everybody about it. And what oftentimes happens is we share information with close friends, and that's kind of how we find a lot out. But, you know, those are my thoughts, is 97% of the people just don't have the type of money to look at some things. So what some of the things that we've done differently is we've monetized everything, and we've made a lot of offerings available to everybody so that you don't have to be an accredited investor to get these type of returns. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to see if you can save money in taxes. So I think what we're doing is we're going after market to try to help a lot more people. And through monetizing and opening up opportunities, we're starting to see people make a lot of money and make up for lost time.
That's, I think, such a great point right there, is that,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of how we started off. It's like, okay, well, I'm just starting my business. I'm a single guy, I'm a single girl, whatever. How do I get involved in this? And if I'm not in that 3%, I'm never going to have the opportunity. It's about changing that mindset that these are available. And what you told me, you know, when we first started off, or what you're sharing with our listeners, is that, you know, you saw opportunities, so you got around people and you started talking to people like that. And I think that would be my encouragement to the people who are listening right now is, you know, you got to get out and talk to people about this. And if the people that you're hanging around right now don't have this information, you have to look for those type of opportunities. I mean, so where do you go for those opportunities? Well, maybe like what I was talking about earlier, there's an investment seminar at the hotel that we're staying at right now. Maybe going to there and meeting other type of people that are looking to do the same thing as you, and then having some mentors and some people around there that can help in that, you know, giving you that information, like you said, surrounding yourself with a multitude of counselors. You got to get out. You know, you got to go look for some opportunities sometimes. You got to use that power that's been given to you and get out there. And it's not limited, just like you said, it's not limited to just that 3%. It's been monetized now by companies and individuals like yourself to help people at whatever level that they may be. And that's the most important thing I want to get across to people who are listening today, is that you don't got to be in the 3%. All you got to do, though, is just start thinking that way. And it starts by changing your mindset and looking for the opportunities and going out and getting involved. And something that, you know, I've been encouraged to do by people who have mentored me and helped me is to read. You know, read. I'm constantly reading. I'm reading at least one book at a time, sometimes 2 and 3 books, because sometimes I'll read a book and it's like, I don't know if this one's going to go, so I'll switch to the other one. And another one's maybe really exciting, but when I'm reading the one that's really exciting, then it's okay. It helps me to switch back to the one that's on investing, because sometimes the one on investing can be a little bit boring, and so whatever that may be. But my point is, you know, you got to keep educating yourself in whatever form that may be. Watching videos like this, getting encouragement. That's the whole reason why we're doing this video, what we are doing today, is to let people know is that you can make a difference in your own life. You'll do something. But it's also, you know, the perception of educate yourself, take classes, go to seminars, read books, watch podcasts, do whatever it is, but you got to take a step to be able to get yourself to make yourself better. But anybody can make themselves better if they just choose to do that.
So, Lonnie, I have a question for you. If I have $500 and I don't know anything, but I'm just now hearing this, give me like the top 3 to 5 things that you would recommend I do with that money.
So the first thing I would do is write a 10% tithe check to the church that you go to. That's exactly what I would do. The second thing I would do is...
You're going to give some money away right off the bat?
Okay, let him finish his list and then we'll go
I'm
hammer.
I'm just playing the advocate.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I get asked that, you know, obviously I know that we're Christian based, but, you know, I am who I am no matter where I'm at. So if I'm sitting there with, you know, a prospective client, my response is going to be the exact same way.
Right.
You know, and it is interesting because I do feel like just the world in general has a strong heart for generosity. You know, they really do. They get it.
Yeah.
I think the Christian world, for whatever reason, oftentimes, you know, we're still trying to have conversations about, you know, do we really have to tithe? One thing I've learned about, you know, my clients in auditing 20 years of clients is I have clients that do tithe and I have clients that don't. But I'll tell you what is I see a strong difference in the clients that tithe. They've never seen anything. It's never went wrong for them. It's always went good. So I actually think that would be the first thing I would encourage people is to, you know, tithe. Without question. The second thing is to bring clarity to the goals in your life. You know, one of the things that I do in the process of all of my meetings, before I give any financial recommendations, is I want to understand with clarity, what is your vision? What is your goals, personally, professionally, financially? I can never give unbiased and objective recommendations without having 100% clarity in what's important to that individual. And then step number 3 would be to create an increment step towards that, you know, and I think that that's what discourages people, is that, you know, they have to have so much money to get into a financial, to get financially organized and progress and really get in a good place. Actually, that's the opposite. You know, so if we have a vision and we have clarity, and then we make it very clear what the steps are to execute, how do I get to that place, then there just is going to be a natural progression. That's when the professional recommendations will come in. We talk about either the strategy and or the products or services that will support that strategy that's in alignment with what individuals have communicated. This is exactly what I want to do.
So let's just say you got an individual. He's never invested before. He's got that $500. Where does he start? Should he go online, he or she go online, look for a financial advisor? Should they look for an investment entity like a Charles Schwab or a Vanguard? What do they do now to get that started, to get some counsel around them to be able to do that?
Yeah, what's great about, you know, what we're starting to see in the marketplace is there's so many platforms. You know, you have a lot of platforms that make it very, very, very cost efficient for people to invest. You know, obviously Fidelity, I think, is probably the most cost efficient platform, but it's also the most respected from just a regulator's, you know, thoughts. And I like that. So if an individual had $500 and they wanted to just invest, I think all of those things, Charles, are safe and beneficial.
Where do they go to get the advice?
Doesn't Fidelity have, if you're going to invest, don't they have dedicated people to, you know, guide people into their investments?
They do.
Just kind of like Vanguard has the same thing.
They do. They're starting to build a lot more platforms to make it easier for people to invest in a regulated, safe environment without the interaction of an individual. I think I embrace it. Obviously, if you would have asked me that 20 years ago, I would say, give them my phone number, right? You know, I want to meet them. And that's true. You know, we want to meet people. We want to meet them where they're at and help them where they're at. But I embrace the platform of what's going on out there. That's a little bit different than what most money managers would say. Most major investment companies, the Charles Schwab, the Fidelity, the Vanguard, you know, even Betterment's a great one. They're going to ask more questions that create suitability being defined as where you put this money, is it actually beneficial and suitable for you? I support all that.
If there's one thing somebody can get out of the wisdom that you have, what would be the one thing?
Add spiritual principle to everything natural. If you do, you're going to have supernatural results. You know, there's a statement that I really live by: keep Jesus in the equation. You know, I think no matter what we do in life, you know, if we add spiritual principle, great results are going to happen. Keep Jesus at the forefront, great things are going to happen. My experience has been, even when we make mistakes, you know, he causes all things to work together for good. That's one kind of spiritual thing. You know, and then, you know, kind of a natural. I love Warren Buffett. You know, the first step to making money is stop losing it.
That was funny. That was the kind of the comment that the lady that I talked to this morning at the hotel, her comment was that I said, well, how were you able to save $6,000 working at Dunkin' Donuts? And she said, I changed spending money on things that I realized that I didn't even want. And most of the time I was throwing them away. So she was just buying stuff, not even getting anything out of it and throwing it away. And all she had to do is just stop that and investing that. And that's what changed her life around and was able to her to then start to then be able to invest. It's very simple. So that's a great tip.
Yeah. The first step that we help people with in, so many meetings is let's get financially organized. None of us are, we don't know where things are going, where things are coming. And just that in of itself, if you're pretty aggressive with it, you'll find a lot of money by just, a simple, cancellation of the 5 Netflixes that I had.
Yeah, right. Exactly. One of the things that we like to do is occasionally we'll do a money fast. And on a money fast, we usually find out, wow, look at how much money we have, how much money we're actually spending, and what you can do with, what you can do without.
Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your wisdom and just being a part of everything. And I just wanted to pray over you. Just came up on me, just over your career, over your family, and really make a declaration over you. I was thinking this morning when I was preparing for this about what God told Abraham in Genesis 12. He said that I will make you into a nation, I will make your name great, and and I will bless you so that you'll be a blessing. And what I got out of that this morning when I was meditating on that is the part where he said, I will make your name great. So what I wanted to declare of you right now is that God is going to make your name famous within your industry, that your name is going to become so famous that you're going to have so much wealth and so much accumulation, not only for yourself, but so that you can be a blessing, but also so that you can give glory to the kingdom for everything that he's done. Because both of us, all of us sitting here today, we know that everything that we've gotten has come because of that. And that's why we started this whole thing off talking about, let's get on the spiritual side of this first. Let's set the foundation before we even start talking about the logical ways of investing. And I like what you said too about, the super on the natural. And a lot of times we want to focus on that natural without putting the super on it. So I just want to, just encourage people, remember it's the supernatural. And I declare with everybody here listening to the sound of my voice that your name is going to become famous within your industry in Jesus' name.
Amen. I add to that that you will lend to many nations.
And not borrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Goodness.
This has been fun. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
And every moment. Lonnie, how can people reach you?
My email address, which is Murphy_Lonnie at nlgroupmail.com.
Be courteous of your reaching out to people.
Yes, be respectful of people's time and energy and wisdom. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, brother. Appreciate you. Just
as
a
appreciate you guys.
Closing to everybody. It's never too early. It's never too late to invest, and it's never too little. So start now. Get it going. Keep going. Be faithful little, and then you'll be faithful with the much. Until next time, peace.
Hey kids, it's Money Mike. I'm lean, I'm green, and I'm a money machine. Welcome to my new book, Money is Easy, where I branch out with glee, revealing the message, money is as easy as counting 1, 2, 3. This is my first book in the Money Mike and the Gang 4-book series, where I get together with my good friends and reveal hidden secrets in my tree leaves that pay dividends. I'll teach you 3 simple steps on how to get rich, so you can tell a friend and also help their lives to be enriched. So check out my new book and you will see that money really is easy as counting 1, 2, 3.